my name is Ellie Dashwood, and today I'm going over my July reading wrap-up. Here's my big stack of books. I actually have another one, but I only have an ebook of it right now, so I'll just tell you about it when I get to that. My first book I read was Belgravia by Julian. He is the author of Downton Abbey and other books like that, and so he's quite familiar with writing historical fiction. This one is set in the 1800s, the area of London called Belgravia. It follows the story of the Trenchard family, which its head is a man who's extremely socially ambitious. He's trying to climb up the ladder from being a very low merchant to being a middle-class merchant to being a very high-class merchant, but he wants to really be up there with the nobility and the peers of England, and he's not going to stop until he does. Now, his social climbing is an embarrassment to most people around him, including his wife, who he drags along to all these social events that she knows they're really not welcomed at. However, it's at one of those social events that she runs into a countess, and her and the countess discuss something that happened in their past, and it opens a very old and painful wound, and one that brings quite a lot of scandal to both of their families. So it follows these two families, the Trenchards and the Brockenhurst, as they deal with the past and what it could mean for their future and the secret that they share between them that could really change everything. Now, it's very well written, it's very historically researched, as you would expect from the creator of Downton Abbey. It has the upstairs, downstairs things that Downton Abbey has, where you get to see what's happening with the wealthy family as well as with the servants. A lot of the characters were really self-serving and self-centered, and I didn't like that. And because he switched between the perspectives of the characters so often, you got to see a lot of those self-serving characters, and after a while they just sort of irritated me. However, the story was very well developed. The characters were well developed. They had, a young love story in there, which of course I always enjoy. And I also really liked how everything ended at the end for the different characters. It was very much where I felt satisfied with how everything turned out. It does have, sort of a possible twist at the end. I saw it coming from like chapter 2. I don't want to ruin it for you. You'll never guess what it is. No. But at the same time, do we really want to be surprised by the end of the book? Or do we want to feel like we had figured it out already? Because I definitely felt like I figured it out, but then I was happy that it did turn out to be what I thought was going to happen. So overall, I gave it 3 out of 4 stars because it was really well done, but just after a while, the self-serving characters started to irritate me a bit. The next book I read was The Painter's Daughter by Julie Klassen. Now, Julie Klassen also wrote The Secret Pimp Brook Park, which is, I talked about that before in my videos about 3 novels you'll love if you like Northanger Abbey. And this one is another Regency era romance novel. It has extremely well developed and rounded characters. She also writes from one of those viewpoints that switches around between the different characters. And I really liked it because it was sweet and it was clean, and at the same time I felt like the characters had a lot of depth and were very real. And it follows the story of Sophia, who falls in love with this very handsome, very wealthy, very dashing young man who comes to stay at one of her father's cottages that he rents out to painters, because she is, of course, a painter's daughter, and he rents cottages out to other painters, and she falls in love with this really wealthy, dashing suitor. However, then he disappears. Not only does he disappear and essentially leave her this note that's like, hey, it's been fun, I'm running off to Italy, but he does that before she has a chance to tell him, hey, I'm pregnant with your child. And so she finds herself pregnant and abandoned in Regency England, which, if you know anything about the customs and culture of that time, is not a good thing. Not only would she essentially be a scarlet woman in society, but also her child would have to bear the lifelong stigma of being illegitimate. However, right when she's in this desperate situation of being abandoned and being pregnant, the very handsome man's brother shows up, and he has always been known for being sort of very brusque and cold, and his brother always called him Captain Black. He's been in the military for years and is a captain in the military, and he's about to go back off to war. However, he sort of figures out, because he knows what sort of guy his brother is, that his brother knocked up this girl and left her at the seaside, and he offers to marry her. At first she's like, you're a stranger, I don't know you, but I'm also in this really desperate situation, and so she agrees to marry him. And the rest of the book is sort of like developing that plot line of like, okay, like, can I fall in love with this guy I'm married? Is he a good guy? Like, what if the other guy comes back? I really love him. Like, what's gonna happen? I really loved it. I loved the secondary characters, also felt very real. There was a little bit of mystery with the secondary characters that you got to find out in the story, which also kept it interesting. And I would just definitely recommend Julie Klassen's The Painter's Daughter. And of course it has all the time period specific of Regency era manners, so it's very Pride and Prejudice-y at the same time. So Jane Austen lovers will love it. The next book I read was The Dashwood Sisters Tell All, which is a modern novel of Jane Austen. And so this is set in modern times, and it follows these two sisters, Ellen and Mimi, who are sent to England to go on this walking tour of Jane Austen's homeland because their mother died and she left it in the will that she wanted her daughters to go spread her ashes somewhere on this walking tour of Jane Austen's like neighborhood of where she grew up and where she died. And so these two sisters, who of course are based off of the characters of Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood, and who have never really gotten along, go on this walking tour. And the story really deals with these two sisters coming to terms with their differences. Of course, the whole difference between Sense and Sensibility that Marianne and Eleanor had to deal with. They also have to deal with a diary that shows up that may shed a whole new light on Jane Austen and her works. And they also have to deal with, you know, love, because this is sort of a modern day retelling of Sense and Sensibility. There is a Colonel Brandon, there is a Mr. Willoughby, and there's of course an Edward Ferrars that show up throughout the story, which as soon as they show up, you know exactly who they are. It's like, okay, military guy, you are Colonel Brandon, even though you have a different name. I liked it. At first, when I started reading it, I found the characters kind of shallow. I feel like Eleanor and Marianne, if you really look into their characters, they have a lot of depth that I didn't really find in the characters in this book. In the book, the character based off of Marianne is very, very shallow and fashion obsessed and sort of super needy and flirty with guys. She's just like all over guys all the time. Which if you read Sense and Sensibility, that is not Marianne's character. She is very, very passionate, but at the same time, she has very high standards when it comes to guys. She's the opposite of being desperate. She's extremely demanding. What the story of Sense and Sensibility tells us is Marianne shifting her focus from being picky about things like, does he love Byron? Does he love music? Do we have the same sensibilities too? Does he have true depth of character? How trustworthy is he? How loyal is he? How loving and kind is he? So she essentially learns what is really important in life, which I guess the character kind of does in the book too, but I feel like Marianne was never shallow about it. She had deep-seated like standards and requirements, but she just learned to shift them over time versus just sort of being like, cute guys, I'm gonna love all of you. Wait, no, maybe I should like this guy. At first, I really was like, I don't know how much I like this book, but eventually it got me hooked into the storyline. And while the storyline wasn't necessarily the most absolutely believable thing happening ever in the universe, I still liked it. It was still like sort of a fun, quick, light read. You know, if you've been maybe reading a lot of really like in-depth historical fiction, this would be, you know, something fun that just like, you don't have to think very much and just read and enjoy the similarities to Sense and Sensibility, I would say. So yeah, check that out. It's The Dashwood Sisters Tell All by Beth Patillo. I don't know how to say her last name. I'm sorry. So I also read 2 nonfiction books this month, and both of these books, I will let you know right away, I actually got them for free to do reviews of. And the first one is called Reading People, and it's by Anne Vogel, who you may recognize as the author of the Modern Mrs. Darcy blog. So this book delves into the different personality frameworks that people use to better understand themselves and others, such as the Myers-Briggs, extroversion versus introversion, and different stuff like that, love language, you know, all of those things, highly sensitive people. It gives a really good overview, basics of all of these things. It doesn't go in depth into them. So if you've been maybe interested in looking into those things more, but you don't know where to start, or you don't know which personality framework you want to go with to learn more about yourself, I would suggest looking at this book because it does give a really good, friendly, easy, broken down understanding of each of these different frameworks. I would say it is very, very basic though. So if you feel like you have a really good understanding of Myers-Briggs or those things, you might find it too basic. But other than that, if you're looking for a good brief overview, I would definitely recommend it. Like I said before, I was given a free copy in order to be part of the launch team because this book is coming out in September. Also, one thing you may notice from following me, if you follow me on Pinterest, which if you don't, head over to Pinterest, I'll put the link in the bio and follow me on there, is that I do like to pin a lot about Myers-Briggs and different personality types because I find that really fascinating. I also find it fascinating when people type classic literature characters. For example, what personality type on the Myers-Briggs is Elizabeth Bennet? You know, I've seen her put as that INFJ a lot, but I don't really see INFJ in her. I definitely see either ENFP or ENTP in her. I've seen her typed as both of those as well. I kind of vacillate between thinking she's an ENTP versus an ENFP. So what do you think she is? If you have any say on what personality type Elizabeth Bennet is, leave it in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear from you. Also, my other book I got for free, I got this from Blogging for Books, to review is Manga Art, which if you follow me, you know I really love art. I like drawing. I'm not saying I'm necessarily good at it, but it's fun. And I have an Etsy store over at dashyshop.com where I do sell my artwork based on classic literature. So I got this book thinking that maybe I can learn more about art and, you know, so I can better draw all my classic literature and period drama dreams. Anyway, I found it very interesting. At first I thought it was going to be sort of like a how-to book, but it's not a how-to draw book. Essentially, it's inspirations and techniques. What he does is throughout the book, he's a professional artist who's drawn a bunch of different artwork. Let me find a cool one here. So the sketches he did of it beforehand, showing eventually what became the finished artwork. And then he does a write-up where he says, like, you know, this is where I got my inspiration for the idea, and then he tells you sort of the technique or the materials he used. So he'll be like, I, you know, did this in pencil, and then I put some watercolor in, and then I scanned it into Photoshop and did this to it. So it's almost more like he takes his artwork and he breaks down, like, this is why I drew this, and these are the materials and methods I used to do it, and this is the picture. And so I find it very interesting because, like, he's a very mixed media artist, and he combines different forms of art that I would have never thought before. Like, you know, he uses marker and watercolor and color pencil all in the same picture. And so I find that really interesting. And I think I'm going to start trying to do that more in my own artwork, like trying different media and like combining it. And I really liked the inspiration of, there's so many different types of art in this book, even though it's all manga themed. And so I really like it. If you are into art at all, especially if you're into manga and you want to get a better overview of sort of the techniques used to create some of these pictures, I would definitely recommend this book. It is Manga Art by Mark Grilly. I will put a link in the bio too. So that is my reading review of July. Yes, that was the month we just lived through and I just read through. So what was your favorite read of this past month? Leave it in the comments below and tell me too, have you read any of these books I've suggested? Or do you think you want to check any of them out? Let me know too in the comments below. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. Make sure to subscribe to my channel. Again, follow me on Pinterest to see all my awkward pins about a bunch of stuff, and be awesome because you're awesome, and have an awesome day. Bye!